The area all sorry about that. The area all the way from Fiji over to the Mid East has moved on a deep level now. So really, I want you to imagine this like a diamond shaped, where we have deep earthquakes. You see them raised high off the globe. Each one of these deep earthquakes is on the perimeter, and we look right in the middle. And where does that take us? Right in the middle takes us down to our location where we're looking for a 7.9. Okay, so each time we see one of these deep earthquakes like this, one on itself can cause major activity. But you start talking 3 or 4 across an area 10,000 miles, and it's 10,000 miles. It is 10,000 miles from this letter D all the way over to this letter D on the other side of the planet, basically. So, that amount of an area right now is moving from Fiji to Asia, and then in between there on both sides, from Japan to Indonesia. This whole area has pressure coming up underneath it right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't need to tell you, something that's big enough to displace 10,000 miles across the last time was two 7.9s, the largest earthquakes of the year, and that struck 2 weeks ago, when we saw the last round of deep earthquakes kick up like this. Now it's happening again. It's happening again. And last time, I told everybody, look, it's going to get large. And everybody's like, oh, one person in there is like, you're fear-mongering. I'm like, oh, God, are we back to this? Because I don't issue the warnings lightly, and it's major egg on my face if a big one doesn't hit. Right? So each time we've seen one of these deep 6.0 or greater earthquakes, it's been followed within a week, within 7 days. The last time it happened was just right before Christmas. There was a deep 6.3 here. Okay? Or 6.4. And the deep 6.4 here led to a shallow 7.9 here on Christmas Day. So 1 week before the big one hit, the deep one hit. And it's going to happen again. Okay? So, have a plan and be prepared. We're starting off the new year with high seismic activity potential. And look in the area in between our deep earthquakes, and we're going to most likely see a shallower, larger earthquake. The whole Pacific is connected, so this means Japan's going to flare up. This means west coast of the United States is going to flare up. This means Alaska is going to flare up. This means Central America, South America is going to flare up. Asia's going to flare up. South Europe's going to flare up. And volcanic eruptions are going to go back through the roof. In the West Pacific and in the East Pacific. The whole plate is in a displacement mode right now, very far down below. Over the past few hours, it's spread out across the planet. This is today's earthquakes. So, in the past several hours, the deep one, the big one that you see here raised high off the globe, followed by these two right at the center, and this one all the way over here at the edge. So it's pretty obvious we're looking right down in the middle. This is almost like a star shape. If you wanted to connect this like a star, you could go from our deep earthquake down to the south, to the north, to the east, to the west. And that would put us in the center where major stress at the fulcrum point in the middle would be building. But we have to look to the whole region now at this point. 10,000 miles across has moved, which means the areas in between are under serious, serious pressure. And don't kid yourself, when this side of the plate moves, guess what happens? This side of the plate compensates within a few days' time or less. So, after it moves over here, you'll see this side displace, like pushing on the edge of a table. One side moves, the other side moves. You lift up on one side, the other side goes down. You push down on one side, the other side goes up, like a seesaw that we used to play on as children. Only in this case, the fulcrum point is halfway across the Pacific, and we're talking about areas 10,000 miles across that are so vast that you couldn't even imagine. Okay? So, it's all going down right now. And in the next few days, you're going to see this spread out and get bigger. Everything that was in the 4 and 5 range will be in the 5 and 6 range. It's just no way around it. With a single larger earthquake mixed in with the increase overall. Because again, we've been looking at 4s going into 5s, topping out at the upper 5 range. Now we'll be at 5s going into 6s, topping out in the upper 6 range, and that doesn't count the big one. Okay? Oh man, oh man. All right, dust off the plans. Be prepared because this week's about to be a repeat of the two largest earthquakes of the year. And if I'm wrong, I will come back on in several days and tell you. So I am watching like a hawk. I'm watching very close, listening to every ding. I hear a ding, I'm waiting. Okay, is that 2? Is that 3? Is it 4? And if it hits anything above 5, start getting into the 6s, I'm going to be coming back on here to see if it's panning out to the way we're expecting, which is, again, our silent zones in between the zones that are moving now are going to be hit. And there's a lot of them. And it's the West Pacific focus. But it's going to spread out from the West Pacific and go over to Europe and go over to the United States. So if you're in Europe or if you're in the United States, we absolutely have to pay attention to what size earthquakes start striking here in the next day to 2 days. That's going to be your determination factor for how big it's going to get for you. So is it going to be just 6s? Is it going to be 7s? What's it going to be? I'm looking for, again, for 6s, for us to go from 4s and 5s to 5s and 6s. Up a whole notch from this new round of deep earthquakes. But right in the middle of it all is where we're looking for a really big earthquake to occur in the next several days. Like I said, starting last night, we have to give it up to 5 to 7 days because the last time it took 5 to 7 days. Last 2 times. So the last 2 times there were deep earthquakes like this in the 6 range, it took 5 to 7 days for that pressure to come up and transfer upwards and outwards and to expand. And when I say expand, you can see these domes, okay? These domes, you can imagine this as pressure coming up from underneath, and it's displacing this whole area around the deep earthquake. And if that was just on its own, we would look here. But because of the other deep earthquakes, it's displacing the whole half of the planet, basically, at this point. And that's no exaggeration. We can measure our point from over here at Fiji all the way over here to Afghanistan. Here, let's do it. See where the tip of our red arrow is? Okay, we'll get a measurement from there all the way down to Fiji. Let's do it right now. Okay, let's get a display capture turned on. Okay, the way we do this, real easy. We use Google Earth. We'll take our line measurement tool, and we'll start down here at Fiji. And again, let's get an approximate area. We can just do this approximate. It doesn't need to be right down to the mile. But let's just see where our deep earthquake is occurring. Okay, it's pretty much due south. Okay, you see where our letter D is, and you see the island chain up there? Okay, we will go find that spot. So, we come down here, due south, and let's just say it's right in here. And if we get it minus 100 miles or so, it kind of doesn't matter. I just want to get an overall estimation of how big this area is. So, line measurement tool, we're going to do it first in miles, then we will do it in kilometers. I'm doing it miles for my US viewers, who are predominantly the main viewers here on YouTube. Okay, so we'll measure from this point, and we will go all the way over to Afghanistan at the Afghanistan border. And we'll mark it right there. Let me turn on my border so I can get it really good. Okay, we almost got it really close. Let's bring it over just a little bit further. Okay, here we go. Did I say 10,000 miles? I'm sorry, 8,100 miles. Well, you know, it's an overestimation on my point. Sorry, my bad. How about 13,000 kilometers? Okay, so 13,000 kilometers and 8,100 miles apart. That distance is moving right now, down below. Okay, so this side of the planet is moving, while the other 2/3 of the planet on the other side has not moved yet. But it will correspond. It will compensate. It's not just going to stop here in the West Pacific. It's going to go over to Europe and go over to the West Coast. So we see compensation movement happen. Take a look at this. Do you see these fracture zones? They look like rungs on a ladder going east and west or left and right, depending on how you want to refer to it. Okay, each one of these fracture zones connects from the United States and Central America over to the West Pacific. And we see pressure transfer out from the West Pacific and go across these fracture zones. And they go all the way up and down the entire plate, indicating that this has happened so many times in the past. So, which way does the pressure transfer overall across the Pacific? Well, you look at where your deep earthquake occurred, and you look at your fracture zones to the east, and look where they connect to. Well, we have 2 fracture zones here to the east. They just so happen to go over where our 2 red arrows are pointing to. The 2 red arrows across the Pacific, let me show those to you. Here they are. And this means another round of earthquake activity is about to come into South America within the next 3 days. And that means if you're in South America, be aware it could go 1 magnitude larger. 1. Not 2, 1. Why 1? Well, it's got to go all the way across the Pacific, and most of the pressure should be transferring to the west. So if we go 1 magnitude larger than the 6.3, it puts us at a 7.3 potential, but where? Well, look which way our 2 arrows point. Both spots should be hit, but the most of the pressure seems to be going to the north each time at this point. So if we're going to look for the potential up to 7.3 by the end of this week, it'll be after we see the large earthquake strike over here. So first things first, West Pacific should be hit. There should be displacement across the plate. It should be about 1 magnitude larger than our deep earthquake over here. Like I said, things are about to get real busy. And if I'm off by like a half magnitude, so be it. It might be a 6.9 instead of 7.3. But we're looking for large movement to begin to develop out here in South America, at the tip of South America meeting Central America. And we also do have to look to the south at the other arrow, but it should be lesser movement. Maybe a whole magnitude lesser. Now, if I'm wrong and it's flip-flopped, then we'll know the pressure has gone to the south, but it seems to have been going to the north. The past several times there's been deep earthquakes here. So it'll follow our northern arrow for the most part and come in Ecuador, Peru, south of Colombia. It's just, this is all going down right now. I'm going to be busy this week. There's no doubt about that. Oh, take a look. In between our 2 earthquakes, our warned location from last night was just hit, guys. And you may remember last night, we tallied up the magnitude and we talked about this at length. We talked about this location in Indonesia as a spot to watch. But look at that. It's in between our 2 earthquakes that we were talking about last night. So here's the earthquakes from last night. Take a look at it. You see these? Okay, so we've got the 4s on the west and the 4s on the east. And right in between, right where our arrow is, that's where I issued the warning last night. You guys, go watch the update, last night's video. And we talked about this location being the next spot to be struck in Indonesia. And look at today's earthquakes. So here, let's get only today's earthquakes on the map. There we go. So there it is. The spot we were looking for in Indonesia has been hit. You can cross that off the map. And we're watching for the large earthquake to release very, very soon. In the next several days, in less than a week, we should see this basically pan out across the West Pacific. But here we go. I'm going to end the update here by showing you the earthquake in the location where we warned last night. It's over on my YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's titled Nightly Earthquake Update and Forecast. And in there, about 15 minutes into the video, I bring up this location in Indonesia and warn for this magnitude earthquake to strike. Now, it could go larger. Could go a whole magnitude larger in the next couple days. Like I said, we're going to go up from 4s and 5s to 5s and 6s. I'm glad you got to see it strike real time on the map. That is almost 24 hours from the point where I issued the warning. Last night at 10 p.m. is when I issued the warning for this location. Now it's been hit. Okay? So, I take the warning serious. We take the warning serious for every location. By the way, 3.7 has struck in Oklahoma. I forgot to mention that. 3.7 struck in Oklahoma on top of the 3.3s that we talked about earlier today. And in case you're a new viewer, this is a fracking operation. And let's go check the magnitude list on here, see if it is a 3.7 or if it's something larger. Here we go, 3.5, 3.7, 3.9, 5.0. Detected? 5.0, 3.9, 4s, 4s, upper 3s, 4.3. Look at this, guys. 4s, 4s, 4s. They're factoring in those 2s, bringing it down. Look at the 4s. Look at this. A boatload of 4s detected. 4, 4.3, 4.1. I told you they're lowballing it. 4.3 by a half magnitude. I called it. They are lowering it by a half magnitude. So, there's the mid-range 4 we were looking for in Oklahoma. They say 3.7. It is a 4. And it matters because that's what we forecast for. And I just showed you the station list. Now that we saw the station list, we're going to go show you, the new viewers, what's there. Such a beautiful thing. Let's go show you. It's a sarcastic beautiful. Wait do you see what's there. Wait do you see what the cause of this earthquake is. Again, if you're a new viewer, check it out. Okay, here we are. Look, right next to two different frack wells, where humans have drilled down into the crust by several thousand feet and are injecting polluted water. They call it wastewater, but really it's polluted water left over from big industry. Big industry pays big money to get rid of this wastewater. They don't have anywhere to put it. So, what the oil companies will do is take this wastewater from all sorts of industry, plastics and steel manufacturing, aluminum, and all kinds of stuff, and they'll take it and pump it down into these drilled wells. They'll leave the water down in there, but it will fracture the shale and release gas, which they then siphon off and sell on the market. But unfortunately, this wastewater doesn't just stay down in the well like it's supposed to. When pressure comes in from the West Coast, it hits these areas like a hydraulic shock absorber. And every single one of these pads is a different spot where humans have drilled into the earth. This imagery is from 2014, and there's so many more now. If you think this is a lot, see these little squares everywhere where one of these little squares? There's so much more now. It's not even funny. Just to give you an example of what it looks like in 2016. Okay, so, look what they've done. Okay, every single one of these. Oil and gas, oil and gas. But every single one of them is a drill point into the crust that's hydraulically charged with large volumes of water and gas. But it's not designed to absorb any incoming pressure. And then look what happened over on the West Coast over the past couple days. Boom. 2 stacks of earthquakes at 2 different volcanoes. And we warned for up to mid-range 4 to strike in Oklahoma along with a noteworthy swarm. And now it's on the screen, right in front of your eyes. You don't have to take my word for it. I just showed you the station locations yourself. Add in the swarms. It's pretty obvious what's going on here, okay, guys? So get the word out. The earthquake we were looking for in Oklahoma has struck. This is on top of the earthquake just struck over in Indonesia that we were looking for. And the areas in Japan, the areas in the West Pacific are going to have to be placed on high alert for the next 5 to 7 days. Because these deep earthquakes like this usually take several days to transfer their pressure up. The last 3 deep earthquakes like this, above 6, took 5 to 7 days for that pressure to finally show up. And it caused 7.9s on either side of the deep 6.3s that we saw previously. So we're looking for it to happen again. If it doesn't happen again, well, then we're going to have to, again, this is science. We're trying to observe for the repeatable. So does it repeat again? If it happens again, then we can pretty much establish a pattern. If it doesn't happen again, then we can say it's an anomaly, and we need to keep watching to see if it does occur again. This is make it or break it time. This will be the third 6.3 that hit at a deep level, and if it's followed up by a shallow or larger earthquake, it's going to be an established pattern. So it really is. In science, you watch for patterns, and if you see it repeat itself multiple times, it ceases to be a coincidence and goes up to something that's actually a pattern, something that repeats itself. Okay? All right, so I'm done lecturing on the topic. Have your plans dusted off. That's a good idea anyways, right? But if you live on the West Coast, if you live in Japan, if you live over in the West Pacific, Central America, South America, or South Europe, that's like the whole planet. You pretty much need to pay attention to what's going on right now. Okay? And I'm not exaggerating. Hell, you don't even have to come to my channel to do it. Go to whatever earthquake service you use and keep track over the next couple days, because you're going to need to. Okay? Peace out. Much love. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Being prepared means knowing what's going on, right? Like if a big storm's coming. You don't want some weather forecaster to come on and fluff you up and be like, oh yeah, everything's fine. There's nothing out there. No storm is brewing. Meanwhile, there's a huge tropical system developing. You wouldn't want that, right? So I'm not going to fluff you up. Look at it. There's 2 sets of deep earthquakes on both sides of the planet happening within a few hours of each other, bordered on both sides by deep earthquakes to the north and south. We know past deep earthquake events lead to shallower, larger earthquakes. Therefore, logically, it is prudent to prepare for a larger earthquake just in case. I'll keep watch. Anything new develops, Anything gets lesser, anything gets greater, I will be on at a moment's notice over the next several days to let you know, okay? So, all the mystery removed. You can see which way the pressure transfers with the arrows. You can know what magnitudes to expect based upon the deep earthquakes, and they normally cause 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. You use those two things in conjunction with these silent zones, and the silent zones are nothing more than the areas that have yet to be hit by earthquakes in the last 48 hours. So you see a lot of silent zones. Well, each one is going to be hit, and it's going to be hit right in the middle, the fulcrum point of each silent zone. So there's only a few fulcrum points in the silent zones. We're not talking about the whole area. We're talking about the middle of each fulcrum point, or each silent zone has a middle point. That is the fulcrum point. If you don't understand fulcrums, just look up fulcrum, or you can click on the Dutchsinse frequently asked questions that was put together by Sumo over in the UK, and it's over on my website. It's the top link down below this video in the description box. Just click it. It'll tell you everything you want to know on the questions about deep earthquakes, shallow earthquakes, fulcrum points. So I hope you guys use it. Much love to everybody in here who's curious on seismic activity. And if you're new here on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you are new over on Twitch, what's up all... Man, guys, Twitch is rocking it. It's really blowing up. And if I can manage, get this, in order to become a Twitch partner. So right now, I won't make a dime on Twitch. That's fine. I'm looking for a platform to get earthquake forecasting out. Money is irrelevant on it. It doesn't matter whether there's an ad on it or not right now, or if the ad is going to Twitch, that's fine. Okay, that's cool. They're providing me a platform. They deserve to make some money on me. But in order to become a partner on Twitch, like I'm a YouTube partner, you got to have 500 steady viewers on Twitch. Steady. 500. So take a look at that number in my Twitch room right now and basically times it by 4. And that's what it needs to be in order for me to even be considered to be a partner on Twitch. So if you guys will go over to Twitch and just at least open it up so I can at least have a steady few viewers on there, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to beg you. If people spread it on Twitch, it'll work. If not, not a big deal. It's still getting out to the world. And we can get the warnings out and try to save some lives, try to at least stop some injuries. Okay? If people know what to expect, the last time we warned, hey, listen, I'll end it right here. If you're on Twitch, you might not know. You might be new. If you're a new viewer here, you might not know. A couple months ago, a deep earthquake, 5.8, struck down here in this place called the Tyrrhenian Sea, south of Rome, right where our red arrow bottom is right here, okay? It was a deep 5.8. When I saw it, first of all, we hardly ever have deep earthquakes here. But when I saw it, I know deep earthquakes cause shallow earthquakes, and it could be 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. Well, it was a 5.8. And if it's a deep 5.8, that means there's a shallow 6.8 to 7.8 that could strike nearby. So I got on YouTube, on the live stream, told everybody, watch out in Italy for a 6.8 to 7.8 to strike here, where you see these 3 earthquakes. The warning went out. It got out to the people in Italy. They got the warning. And there's some viewers that might be in my chat room right now who got the warning the day it hit, the day before it hit, and that night they were prepared. They slept by the door. They even told other people. Some people slept in their cars. Okay? So, they got the warning. Then the big earthquake hit the next day, and it measured out starting at 7.6. It was the largest earthquake in decades. And they got the warning, and that was because we put it out. You know how I know that's because we put it out? One of the people who got the warning went on BBC News and gave me a huge shout out twice on a live update from Italy. And that's Janet Fullerlove, who's here in the chat room, I think. Or if she's not, the video is over on her channel or on my channel. If you guys got the link to it, you can watch it. She's like, Dutchsinse put out our warning. We got the warning. We were able to be prepared. We talked to other people in town. They were prepared, and she said it twice in a 6-minute long update. She mentioned me twice in giving the warning for the area. I'm not bragging. I'm just letting you know. They got the warning. And the reason they got the warning is because we put it out. My viewers shared it to the world. It was distributed around the world in 24 hours. And the people were warned. And it averted injuries, man. It stopped people from either getting hurt or killed. That's a perfect example. I'm not exaggerating. So, when we're talking about a big earthquake over here in Asia, where the buildings are even more flimsily made, where there's a greater population center going on, and the potential of it striking out to sea, it's prudent to warn them. Just to let them know. I mean, if nothing hits, so be it. I'll take the fall, okay? But the chances of nothing hitting at this point with this amount of movement is pretty slim. We have a greater chance of there being a larger release. So I'm just, again, when I see this going down, and I know people are desensitized to, disaster warnings, that we can give them a good reason why they need to watch this region. Look at it. It's bordered on all sides by deep earthquakes. You can imagine what that's going to do. That's putting pressure up underneath the whole region. And what happens when you dome up pressure on the underside of a rock? It's going to fracture. It's going to fracture at that middle point where the pressure's coming up the greatest. Okay? Simple physics. I'll be back. Peace out. Have a good day, good afternoon, morning, evening, or night, Truman Show style. Drink your Makoko. Okay? Peace, guys.